Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar sponsored by Oracle NetSuite featuring Richard Gardner, a manager of solution architecture with Myers-Holum. We're going to talk about making the shift, thinking bigger with strategic AP automation. My name is Liz Brigson, and here on the next slide, I'd love to just highlight how you can get the most out of this presentation. You can utilize the GoToWebinar questions pane to interact with us, and we hope that you will ask questions, share your experiences, maybe share your concerns. We have an expert today who would be happy to walk you through some of the tactical elements of automation and ERP architecture. You can download the handouts from the GoToWebinar control panel, and we encourage you to save those handouts to keep them on file to discuss with your team as you consider future initiatives. Today's webinar is 1 hour. You can respond to 3 of the 4 polling questions to earn your CPE credit, along with remaining logged in for at least 50 minutes. And your certificate will be accessible from your Incoursa dashboard 1 hour after the conclusion of the event. If you have questions after the webinar, always reach out to us at Incoursa, support@incoursa.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you if you want to find me out there. And I would encourage you to follow our sponsor, Oracle NetSuite, and connect with our presenter as well. I do want to just share a bit about our sponsor. We really appreciate everything that Oracle NetSuite does and their commitment to providing quality continuing education and introducing you to experts like Richard. NetSuite has everything you need to grow all in one place, and they support over 34,000 customers in 217 countries and territories around the world. They are the world's very first company dedicated to delivering business applications over the internet, and they have a full suite of cloud-based ERP applications. So everything from financial management, inventory, HR, professional services, automation, commerce. And the belief here is that with unified information, every business achieves their vision. Richard and I have in common that we both were working for companies that implemented Oracle NetSuite, and we're just really happy to be able to be here to highlight what we have learned about NetSuite and just promote Oracle NetSuite as both a sponsor and a really phenomenal solution out there for you. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Richard Gardner. Richard is a manager of solution architecture with Myers-Holum, and he has architected and implemented more than 100 enterprise resource planning implementations. So ERP, AP automation is a focus, but Richard was sharing with me that he has architected solutions for manufacturing and distribution companies, everything in between, and along with AP automation. Richard has a lot of experience with manufacturing operations, global supply chain operations, and of course, as we're going to focus on AP automation, we're really eager to hear from you, Richard, because you are like in the seat of the person who does this on a daily basis. So with that said, I'd like to turn things over to you and just dive in.
Thank you, Liz. So I just want to go over our agenda today. So we're going to learn a little bit about what Myers-Holum does, who we are, what we do, talk a little bit about what AP automation looks like in your corporate strategy, and then also how you can implement AP automation, because there's a lot of things that go into it. We want to make sure that you're aware of everything that can go into it and really where it benefits your company as a whole. And then we'll talk about what AP automation is going to look like in the near future, where it's really heading to. And then towards the end, we'll open it up for any Q&A. So getting into it, Myers-Holum, who we are. So we were founded in 1981 by Mark Myers, who is our president and CEO, and Knut Holm. Now, you may think that, oh, well, Myers-Holum hasn't been around as long as NetSuite, and that's true. We used to be a data warehousing practice and doing a lot in the data warehousing space. We went through other ERPs like SAP doing those implementations, but around 12 years ago is when we found that NetSuite was really on the up and up, and now all we do now is NetSuite implementations, but we also have a full data integration practice and a customization development practice, data warehousing practice still, and also EPM practice, everything in between for your total solution that a company needs. We can handle that. With over 375 different consultants and developers on We are a global implementation partner of NetSuite, so we can support any kind of global operations within the US, overseas, anything North America, Uruguay, Philippines, India, Pakistan, Australia. We really support all of the countries that your global operation could have. And we have industry expertise in almost every single industry that you could possibly imagine: advertising, energy, finance, food and beverage, health and beauty, logistics, manufacturing, retail, software, wholesale distribution. But we also have some industry expertise in these little micro verticals that can come from within these industries that we support as well. And one of the biggest things with us is that we are a NetSuite Alliance partner. All we do day in and day out is implement NetSuite and adjacent NetSuite technology. We don't do any kind of licensing, and we pride ourselves in having the top tier implementation for NetSuite that we have won year over year the Products NetSuite Partner of the Year. Full service firm, so we do ERP implementations, customizations, development, integrations, EPM. We have certified CPAs on staff too, so whatever kind of requirement that comes up, we can for sure be able to answer it ourselves. Now, a little bit about what we do, right? So we do implementations day in, day out. We have our own implementation strategy that we go through with this, which is more of a waterfall approach to our implementation strategy that we split up into 6 different phases within a single implementation. And it's a repeatable phase, so that even if you've already implemented NetSuite and you want to bring on that new functionality like AP automation in NetSuite or any other functionality like that, we use a repeatable implementation process. So we start with our initiate phase, which is really a planning phase. We're trying to make sure that we align project timelines, deliverables, and all that kind of stuff so that we have a successful implementation. The analyze phase is really more about learning more about your business. It's where we are writing up business requirements documents, any technical design documents. And really, it's a deliverable type of implementation, so that at the end of each of these phases, you're going to get some type of deliverable out there that we're going to deliver it against. And essentially within that, it's any of those documents that we're generating is what you guys are going to sign off on and how we're going to be able to implement that solution for you. That build phase is really where we're building out that end-to-end solution with you, but we're of the methodology that we need to teach you how to fish versus taking everything that we learned from you, going away for 6 weeks, coming back, and then showing it to you. It's much easier and much better for a company as long as you learn throughout the project, so that you're actually way more successful at that time of go live. So you're learning how to configure NetSuite, you're learning how to configure your AP automation tools, and you're learning how to do all this stuff during that build phase. Now, validate phase, after we built it out, the validate phase is probably the most important phase of a project, because your whole goal is to break whatever we made for you. If you can't break it, we're successful. So at that validate stage, you are doing user acceptance testing, and we don't get out of validate until we have that 100% success rate. When we transition over into convert stage, where we're getting ready for go live, we're loading in any kind of historical transactions, go live transactions. We're making sure that all of your end users are tested before we actually convert all that data into a production environment. We go live, and then we are in the optimize phase, which is really, we're there helping you we're helping you with your day-to-day tasks, day-to-day questions that can come out from an implementation. So we do everything from your current state assessment, which we're doing in the analyze phase. We're building out your future state based upon what requirements and what future state documents that you want, any kind of planning on that implementation, and then going into the actual deployment and implementation of that strategy. Now, not only do we support new implementations, new modules that you may want to get like AP automation, but we do also want to be there for you with our managed services team too. So you can have a dedicated managed services team for support aspects of it, maybe little add-ins that you want to do to your ERP platform, or some new things that you want to let AP automation actually handle for you. So you'll have a dedicated managed services team for that with industry experience. We know that we have over 375 consultants here, and with industry experience all across the board. And so you'll get an industry expert within our managed services team to really support you for that. End-to-end NetSuite support, so that if something goes wrong in your NetSuite solution, or you need a new report, you need a new field, anything that you would possibly ever need, we'll be there to help support it for you. Even if you wanted to do any kind of outsource administration, we know that for smaller companies, it may not be within the budget to be able to have a full-time staff there to do your administrative functions within your ERP. So we can obviously act as that administrator for you and field any of those types of questions that come up from your day-to-day staff. And then what I like the most about our platform and how we handle our managed services is that it's solely based on T&M. So time and materials. So you're only going to pay for what you actually use. Now, why am I qualified to talk about this? So I've architected and implemented over 100 different ERP solutions with AP automation. Work in industries, I work in various industries, but my industry expertise really comes in with the manufacturing, wholesale distribution, food and beverage companies, and nonprofits, and any of those sub verticals that are within those industries. And I've experienced working with numerous size of companies, everything from pre-revenue startup companies that have really big aspirations on what they want to do in the coming years, to multi-billion-dollar companies going live on NetSuite. So a wide array of different requirements I've heard, different ways on how we could configure a solution for that company to best fit. Now, Liz, I think we're up to our first polling question here.
All right, that sounds great. Let's go ahead and I will launch the first polling question. It's now up on the screen. And the question is, have you been a part of any major AP automation or ERP project in your professional career? So interested to know who in the audience has participated in a major AP automation or ERP project. If you have, then that's great. Go ahead and let us know. If you haven't, then I'm sure it's only a matter of time before you have an opportunity to undertake some type of technology project to enhance or upgrade your firms or your organization's processes and systems. It's probably just a matter of time. And we were talking earlier about how we both have had a chance to participate in these types of projects. Richard and I both at, obviously different companies in our career, and now that's what Richard does full time, because Richard, you must have really acclimated and just really been drawn to the strategic problem solving that really is the hallmark of implementation projects.
Exactly. I love to see companies grow, and that's what I strive to, and in solutions that can really help with that. And I'm pleasantly surprised that 58% of you have actually gone through a major AP automation, which is great. You're understanding a lot of what the benefits can come from that. And the other 42%, obviously, you're going to learn a whole lot in this presentation about what AP automation could do for your company and really how it could benefit you in the long run.
Absolutely. Well, I'll go ahead and close the poll down, and that brings us back to your slides.
Perfect. So AP automation in corporate strategy. So it's integral to that can make up your corporate strategy. Really, what AP automation can solve is your processing challenges, right? So being able to have your AP analyst or any AP clerk being able to have more time to focus on what's more important to grow your business rather than doing a whole lot of data entry. And one of the biggest topics today is being able to eliminate all of that data entry and all that manual intervention that can come from receiving in bills from those vendors, coding those bills for those vendors, going through approval processes and everything in between, because everything takes another step for somebody to manually do something and is more error prone to it. So increasing that automation, letting your AP analyst focus on what's more important is really key, right? Now, the goal is having your AP department as automated as possible, right? Top finance professionals really see the AP automation side being fully automated by 2025, which is mind-boggling to say itself. But with what I've seen on how companies are growing and how much it's all about automation right now, I can see it being a really big benefit to a lot of different companies. Now, what we talk about when we're talking about AP automation, what all does it consist of? Because it's not just the data entry part. There's a whole slew of other things that can come from it. OCR is obviously one of the biggest things there. So when we talk about OCR, a vendor can send you, how it was back in the old days, a vendor could send you a PDF bill, or they could send it to you through the mail, or they could even write it down as a receipt and hand that to you. What OCR does is it's able to extract all of this data from whether it's a PDF sent through an email, or you scan it and upload that document into your ERP platform. It's going to read all this and basically take all that information and put it into your NetSuite platform. Artificial intelligence really comes into play when we're talking about this, because every vendor is going to have a different way on how they're going to code something to you. They may have their own special part numbers that they're doing. They may have their own special wording that they do, and it may be laid out differently on that invoice that you guys are getting. And the artificial intelligence really comes into to play. So it's trying to look for these key identifying factors so that it knows, hey, this is the vendor, this is how I'm going to match it up to the vendor, or this is the line items of that invoice. Here's how I'm going to match it up, and here's how I'm going to cross-reference it with what's in your ERP so that your bills go in smoothly. And it's all just a little bit of a learning experience, because it's going to suggest, hey, this is how I'm coding it. Is that right? When it says no, and then you make the necessary change to it, it's learning from that. And it really, overall, in the end, it's going to make that job just so much easier, especially when you have to code these, because they may go to certain departments. If you're getting a rental invoice, or some type of expense versus a product that you're procuring and that now you're paying for that product, those all will be coded differently. And they may go to certain teams, certain departments, and being able to code that the right way coming in is key, because that's what's also going to drive what's next, is also your approval routing. If you have certain approval processes that you need to go through, even if they're departmental approval processes, or if they're dollar-based approvals, right? So being able to automatically route that at the time that it comes in to whoever needs to approve it, it's less touch points at that point. And then if you're dealing with inventory, if you're dealing with procuring any kind of inventory in your product-based type of company, you know about three-way match. And three-way match is really important. And back in the day, I remember us entering in the bill, going to look up the PO, going to look up the receiver that the warehouse did, and looking at all these three documents and making sure that it's within the tolerance that I want it to be in. But with any kind of AP automation, utilizing three-way match and tolerances set either at an item level, at a vendor level, or at a total company level, we could automatically determine the second that OCR runs, the second that it gets coded, we could automatically determine, hey, it's outside of your tolerance from what you received. A vendor is billing you for 50 units, but you only received 20. There's something wrong with this, and you need to pay closer attention to this before you actually go to pay it. So being able to have that automation there, and no user interaction until there is something that's wrong, makes it just so much easier to use, and your AP clerk is really only worried about the exceptions that can come up from it. And then being able to have a simplified payment process. Right? So when bills come, they automatically get routed for approval. If it gets rejected, then you handle that on whatever your rejection reason is. But if they get approved, it automatically gets put into the queue so that you can then pay them, because now somebody has approved it. somebody has that second set of eyes on it besides what your AP automation has already done automatically for you. And now you just need to pay it. So now that AP clerk can really focus on whether they are managing the vendor or seeing on what they could, what other kind of things could they do with their time that actually is more meaningful than just having somebody there to enter in data. So the biggest benefits of AP automation. So streamlining that process, right? So being able to have all these routine things that your AP team does automatically happen. Saving that time for that AP clerk or AP analyst or CFO, whoever's doing any of that data entry, so that they can focus on what they can do to help grow that company. Extracting that data, utilizing OCR to be able to extract that data, and also reducing fraud. Right? So I know fraud is a big topic right now because there's a whole lot of scams that can happen nowadays. And I get emails all the time saying, "Hey, there's an invoice that you need to pay." But if you utilize AP automation, that vendor is unrecognizable. If there is some kind of virus or anything like that in there, let the tools do the work for you to decide whether or not that is a legitimate bill or a fraud bill. And then really, this is freeing up all that extra time for your staff to be able to focus on what's really important to grow your company. And Liz, we're up to our second polling question.
All right, here we have the second polling question launched on the screen. What have you found to be the key factors in successful AP automation? So for those of you with us who have done an AP automation project, would you say that it begins with the project planning or just defining the requirements from the outset? Or maybe key stakeholder engagement and talking with the right people in the organization to get buy-in on the project on the front end? Or maybe though it's once you get started and just having a really good communication plan. So talking through your scope, rolling it out, having the right strategy, having a good schedule. The communications plan definitely is a critical part of project management. Maybe it's all of the above. And for those of you who have not yet undertaken an AP automation project, then you can go ahead and just let us know. So we do have over, let's see, 90%, 94% of you have submitted. So we'll go ahead and close the polling question. And we can see that the most popular response here is all of the above for those of you who have undertaken a project. And there's really not, like, I guess, project planning sticks out a little bit, but it's pretty closely tied between the three individual responses because all of the above, it really takes each of these three factors for strong project management. So that's good. Do you have a leading answer, Richard?
I do, and it's what 60% of you guys chose is all the above, right? So
Yes.
the project planning that goes into it is really integral so that we know what our deliverables need to be at each stage, both on the implementation partner as well as on you guys, on the customer, right? So that we're all prepared for that. And going through those thorough requirements, that's really important when you go through an implementation too, because a lot of the times I've worked with customers, both small and big, and having the right people in the right rooms and including the right resources at that time is really key, because the one thing that could fail a project is understanding of a crucial requirement that comes during user acceptance testing that's integral to your business, but could have been found out if we had brought in one of your end users to really discuss that. And when we talk about key stakeholder engagement, user adoption and change management is huge in a project, because you don't switch systems, you don't implement new tools all the time. And so when you do, having a top-down, really promoting that project success goes a long way, because when a manager, a director, a CEO, a CFO gets into a project and they don't actually want to do it and they don't see the value that can come from it, that's going to trickle down all the way. And so having key stakeholder engagement is key to it.
Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and close the polling question down and we'll move on to the next section. Thank you.
Perfect. So AP automation, a success or a failure. So the success for AP automation, identifying and addressing those business processes that you want to eliminate the efficiencies. And that's really important, right? What is taking you so long that you have to be able to hire more staff just to be able to grow the company, to grow the company, right? A lot of the times when I work with food and beverage companies, they're taking deliveries daily from 20, 30 different vendors, and they have to hire extra AP clerks just to enter in this data. And so obviously that is a huge inefficiency that OCR could really help with. And then being able to work collaboratively to ensure the alignment with any of your corporate priorities, right? So where are you trying to take your company in the next 5 years? How can we get to that point? And so then this really helps with your implementation team too, because not only have we seen it day in and day out, we have helped other companies get to that point, and we've created that automation that can really help you. Now, it also comes into adopting that approach to the implementation, right? And so this, once again, it's always a top-down thing, right? So we always want to adopt to that new approach that we're taking something, right? Because if you are not for that approach, then it's not going to be a success, and everybody has to be on board with what change is happening. Now, really important one, which is prioritizing the critical processes. It's very important that you could have a laundry list of wants and needs that you want for some type of automation within there. And some things may be more important than others. And a lot of times when I'm speaking to clients, I'm telling them, give me a list of all your wants and needs, but also give it to me on a priority list, because when you go through an implementation, it's very hard if you get everything under the sun in that first initial phase. It's very hard to recognize the value of what you're getting because it's taking so long to actually do it. So prioritizing it and saying what can be a later phase to what can be a current phase is really important. And then training and support is also one of those crucial things, because you need a partner that's there to support you in your growth, but you also need a partner that's there to help you bring on new employees or train any new employees, or even doing your internal training, and us helping to provide you with SOPs or user guides that can go for it, whether it's a short-term or a long-term thing. Now, change management, like I said before in our polling question, change management is huge, and we understand that. And so when we go into any project, whether we're doing AP automation or anything else, we have to come in with a solid change management approach, creating the urgency and making sure that everybody understands that you need this for your future growth. Establishing who owns what, because you're going to have end users that you may end up and want to have own something within your project. And it's ideal to actually get them involved in that project too. Whether it is your controller, who is your business process owner, or your CFO, versus your AP clerk, who does everything that you're trying to automate day in and day out. Both of them should be involved and have a little bit of ownership to a specific process, because the AP clerk may be doing something because they had to do a workaround and just never said anything about it. And so they may end up in no specific requirements there. We need to be able to develop that vision too. Once again, you're going to see in almost all of these is that we're enabling with those end users there. So we include your end users on that design process to give some inputs there. It may not all the time work in the same process that they want, but overall, they help with designing out this process because they're the ones that are doing it inside and out and know of the intricacies that can that happen within your guys' business too. And then removing any of those obstacles that can come up, right? So fostering that continuous feedback, because we as an implementation partner want the feedback, but your internal team will also want that feedback too. Being able to get into the system, start using the system, and being able to talk with that core project team and leadership about it. Now, sharing that vision is also very important too, right? Having everybody involved on what we're doing on a project, when we're doing it, having everybody involved on what your future state is really going to look like, because it's not only going to affect the ownership and the business process owners, it's going to affect everybody that's involved with that module or that implementation that you guys are doing. And we're trying to make sure that for user adoption, for any kind of change management, that we are making sure that everybody is on board with that. And we're building that culture of change for them. And we're fostering that cross-departmental collaboration, because finance is going to be working with your operations. Finance, unfortunately, they work with every single portion of the business because everything flows through finance. So finance actually knows the most about a business. So having that cross-departmental collaboration is really key, making sure that everybody is involved. Now, with any project, there poses risks to a project, especially for AP automation, because not everybody is used to having something completely automated. And sometimes some users are very fearful of, hey, it's not going to be done the exact same way that I do it today. And so being able to know what these risks are and to know how we can mitigate some of these risks. Now, these are just some of the risks that we see all the time on a project, and I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but some of the more important ones that I see happen all the time is one, scope creep, which really is, hey, there's a lot of wants and needs, and we now during an implementation, oh, I need to have this, or I need to have this, and it just keeps making that scope go up. And it's a lot of the times why we're asking during our discovery processes, prioritize all of these wants and needs so that we can know what is critical for you to run your business and to go live with this new functionality versus what is that nice to have, right? Data readiness is also another big crucial part to any implementation. When we're talking about AP automation, data readiness is starting to get that AI engine, that OCR, learning on what your vendor's invoices are. So being able to get all that data to us so that we can start training that system to know how things are going to work and where it should be coding things to. That can oftentimes slow down a project because getting data from any legacy systems or anything like that can be time consuming, and it really can slow it down. The last one that I want to touch on, which is also a huge risk, is the integrity of user acceptance testing. Now, I can't stress this enough that any implementation, user acceptance testing is the most important part to any implementation, because it is there for you to validate that your solution is going to work for you at go live. And it's the last chance to make any changes that are critical before you go live. So really being involved during that time, because it's your end users that are typically going to be the ones that are stress testing the system, that are going to be putting all of those transactions in there, and making sure that your business process owners, any C-levels are really involved through that process because of the fact that you need this to be successful. On the implementation side, we end up and we look for these things. If everything passed on user acceptance testing, we start to wonder if they followed the process or if they tried to find another workaround to get through that process. And so if everything passes, we tend to suggest we should do another round of this, and we should pay a little bit closer attention to this, because it's very important that we get the quality out of this. I think we're to our third polling question, Liz.
Good. Well, here's our third polling question. It's up on the screen. And the question is, if you've been part of an AP implementation project, was the implementation considered to be a success for your company? So let us know. And once you respond in the quick poll box, would you let us know what it was, do you think, that made the project successful, or the project maybe didn't quite hit all of the metrics for success that you hoped for? Was there one thing or just several things that you would change looking back that you think could have got you to a successful outcome? So we'll leave this open for just a bit longer. And what do you see, in your perspective, Richard, from doing this very often, very frequently, working with lots of different teams? What do you think is the biggest difference? I mean, you had a long list there of, considerations and things to watch out for to make a project successful, but what is the biggest difference maker between success and failure in a project like this?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's really making everybody's voice heard, because when somebody doesn't feel like they've been heard, they tend to not want the success of that, or they tend to not feel involved on something that pertains to them. And so they're in the end going to be the ones to be your naysayers that say, well, I don't think that this process is going to work. And it can really be that crucial thing of, hey, we should have did this because it really helps automate the process more, but this because we didn't involve the right people to it.
Yeah, so it sounds like that's one of the big things is at the outset, make sure you have the right people, identify the right stakeholders. We have a couple notes from the audience that I think are just really insightful. So Lisa says that what prevented their project from being considered a total success was still requiring manual intervention. So that's something to address. And then Ross said the project did not give us the expected availability of reporting. So I imagine you hear those pretty regularly, that those are, things that are important to people, is we're implementing automation to get rid of manual processes. And so if there's a lot of manual intervention, that's hard to feel great about that outcome. And then reporting too, like that's what we hear a lot about automation, is that we can get better visibility and better reporting. So those are some real things from the audience, I think, that's helpful to just reflect on.
Yeah, exactly. And for sure, the automation piece is crucial to most companies that are looking at growing, and obviously not getting all that automation in there when you want it in there is ideal. Some companies want all the automation in the world because they really want to focus on the key things to help grow their business, and I fully understand that. Now, when it comes to reporting, it's all about it's all about really what system that you're trying to use for that. And I harp on this a lot too, because I use NetSuite as a customer. I've implemented it for hundreds of companies, and now I'm architecting out these solutions for companies. And reporting is always one of the biggest things that come up. Is how easy is it to import? Do I need an IT team to be able to make a report for me, or can my end users be empowered enough to be able to do it themselves? NetSuite really strives on giving the power to the end user to control what they get a report on. During implementation, we obviously create whatever reports that you want, but going forward, much easier for each individual person to actually create those reports that they need, that's tailored to exactly what they're looking for. Now, going into this implementing AP automation. So there is a specific strategy when we go into implementing AP automation, and really what it looks like for the whole process tree of AP automation. because this shows it from start to finish if you are a products company and you are trying to move those bills that you're getting from all these different companies, whether they are overseas or domestic vendors. So you issue a PO to a vendor, and then simultaneously that vendor could be sending you back digital invoices against it, whether it is a physical invoice or a email of that invoice, right? And so we use we use the tools to be able to capture that invoice using OCR. And when that comes into play, we capture the invoice and we code that invoice properly so that it could get routed automatically to whatever team, whatever department needs to have eyes on that. And then if it's a products invoice, then we do matching against that. We check the invoice to what you originally ordered to what you received. Does that match? If it doesn't match, then maybe you need a tolerance set in there to say, okay, if it doesn't match, then now it needs to be routed to this team. And then from all that, it gets routed into ERP and into your payment side. And to keep in mind here that there are only really two touch points here that there could probably be from start to finish. Issuing that PO to the vendor is your first touch point. The second touch point only comes if there is an exception to this, and that is if it needs to be approved by somebody because of your typical approval routing, or if it needs to be approved based on your exceptions that can come from three-way match. Those are the only two touch points that you will see if you implement AP automation and all of that and all their capabilities that come with it. Now, getting into what AP automation will look like in the near future, we do have one more polling question here. Liz, we have our last polling question, which are...
Yes, here it is up on the screen. Helps if I take myself off of mute. So the final polling question, we're interested to hear from you in the audience. What are the biggest trends that you are noticing in the market right now? Is it faster automation, improved artificial inelegance? That might be intelligence, but sometimes it might be inelegant, and machine learning, fraud detection, supplier relationships. What are the biggest trends that you are noticing? Certainly, we've been hearing a lot about AI and all the things that it can do, but I think the people interface where it takes someone to design a user experience that can do things like think ahead to avoid manual and the necessity for manual interruption or interference, or just reporting, right? Like there's some things that AI can really help us do and automation can do, but there's a lot of things that really take higher level strategic thought and communication, and that's where we all come in. So what are the biggest trends that you are noticing? We will leave this open for just about 5 more seconds here, and then we're going to go ahead and follow the next segment and get into some Q&A. So we'll close this down. I don't think it's surprising to see that all of the above is the most popular, but AI and machine learning is close, definitely the leader here for the individual responses. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, artificial intelligence, machine learning are two huge factors in AP automation, right? Because every company is different, especially the ones that send you invoices. You could be getting invoices from overseas in China that could be in Chinese versus invoices that you would be getting domestically, and they may be structured differently. And really utilizing as much artificial intelligence and any type of machine learning that can come into play there is really key to how a company can grow and take on more vendors without having to take on more staff to be able to handle those vendors. So all the above is kind of what everybody is looking for. They're looking for better supplier relations, right? Being able to take on any vendor from anywhere and being able to have that good relationship with that vendor, not imposing to them certain requirements on their side to say, you must send me this invoice in this fashion here. I can only take it in this fashion, or utilizing fraud detection, or even faster automation, right? Faster automation was that close second there, because everybody wants to be more effective, not only at their job, but they want to be more effective in their business and to help grow it. And that's the main topic here. AP automation really gives you more time to really help grow your business. Now, getting into those trends, it all comes back down to what we just pulled on, faster automation. So being able to have your AP clerks or your AP analysts or even your controllers, whoever is entering in those bills, to be able to focus their time on something that's more meaningful. We don't need data entry clerks anymore to enter in all these vendor bills. I've had companies that get 1,000 invoices a week. They really benefited from AP automation because they didn't have to have all of the 15 different data entry clerks doing that. They could have them focus on something else, right? So being more efficient leads to helping you figure out where you can best suit those people to grow the company instead of staying stagnant with it. And the only way to grow your company is to always throw more bodies at it. So also the improved artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? It's very crucial that we have a bit of this artificial intelligence, AI, in our daily lives when it comes to AP automation, because we want to be able to take on any vendor, and we want the system to be able to learn how that vendor works so that it's easy for that vendor to just email you an invoice and it automatically go in and it automatically get routed the right way. Fraud is the next biggest thing on this list because, hey, when we don't want to get scammed, we don't want to get these emails in with these bills, click on a link, it either crashes our computer or we accidentally pay somebody too much because maybe somebody accidentally fat thumbed a number, right? So being able to detect what is fraudulent or what is abnormal to the norm and being able to work off of an exception versus deal with the exception after it happens. And then better supplier relations, which is really important when it comes to managing your business and managing your vendors, because if you have an automated AP process, I know that I've worked with Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies, and they impose certain kind of requirements to say, hey, your invoices need to be structured in such a way that makes it easier for our AP team to do this. And if you don't do that, then you get chargebacks, you get some kind of, some kind of deduction that can come out of that if you fail to do it that way. But being able to have AP automation in play and not impose those certain things to those vendors, it means that you can easily have more vendors, have a better relationship with those vendors, and overall a better experience with them. So now, if you take anything away from this, from what we've talked about today, from the AP automation side of everything, it's that when you implement AP automation, as long as you're implementing everything that you feel that your company needs to be successful and streamline that business process, right? It's all important on what is your definition of streamlining a business process, because with each company, it is different, right? Some companies really just care about getting the invoice in, but they'll route it for approvals whichever way that they see fit, and they don't want something else to do that. Whereas other companies want to be as hands-off as they can with it. So being able to streamline that process that works best for your company, increasing that efficiency, making sure that that anybody on your AP staff has more time for meaningful tasks rather than data entry tasks, and focusing their priorities on what is most important. And that takes us to the end for our Q&A.
All right, well, that sounds good. So for the first question, one of the things we talked about earlier was like stakeholders and communication and things that can, help a project go well, or project maybe might just cause a project to miss the, the success benchmark. Who are the stakeholders that you find tend to be the most supportive, and then who are the stakeholders you find sometimes tend to be a little bit more reluctant?
That is a great question. So when we're talking about AP automation, the ones that are most supportive are the ones that can really see the overall benefit for the company. So your controllers, your CFOs, somebody that oversees an entire team of it. Where we potentially have some pushback or anything like that is where we get into your end users. So it could be your AP clerks, your AP analysts, and the reason why it could be like that is because they may end up and be fearful that their jobs are in jeopardy because you're getting to this new process. And this is a huge thing on an implementation too, and a huge things on change management side, because we have to understand that that they could have these ideas, and that to assure them that, hey, you're gonna now be focused on these new meaningful tasks that can come into play. And so that's where I see some of the breakdown with, and that's where promoting the change from top down, understanding that it's not going to restructure the business every single time, that you can really see the best outcome from an implementation.
Well, thanks. That's helpful to just think ahead to who are the people who are going to be like gung-ho ready to go, and then who might just need a little bit more encouragement. So that's good. Next question. Sometimes we might just gloss over and assume that every company is ready for AP automation, but backing up a little bit, a first question would be, how do we assess a company's readiness for full AP automation?
Okay, so that's a good question. One, what we first try to understand with a company, especially when we're going through a sales cycle with the company, is not only how tech savvy they could be, is how prone to change they might be looking for, right? I've talked with some companies that still want to keep manual processes because that's how they've done it for 50 years, and they've seen a lot of success that way. For companies that really want to make the switch to a more automated business, we do have to really look at who is going to be using that system, and how much how do they benefit from using this, and how are they going to react from using this too. Because a business, yes, it is ran by controllers and CFOs and CEOs, but all the day-to-day tasks that you do within that business is done by those end users. And you always have to consider a little bit on those end users, and then taking in the phasing approach to an implementation, right? And so this can lead to either a complete success or a complete failure, depending on what you want to do. I have seen implementations go sideways because they wanted to do everything, but they weren't ready to do everything. And we preach every day that phasing is key to your business, so that you aren't overloading your staff with a whole bunch of new stuff, new automation that can come when they're just not ready for it half the time. And so we'll always try to go down the route of being able to phase something out. OCR maybe first, and then automated approval routing maybe second, and then we may end up and go down the route of other things to do in a phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. And it's always good to have this plan so that you're not doing everything at once.
Good advice. Take it one step at a time. Can't automate a bad process. It's not going to do anyone any favors. And final question, shifting gears a little bit, but wanted to ask what steps you take to make sure that you have the necessary data security and compliance when implementing AP automation.
That is a good question because I've dealt with customers that have DoD contracts that need to be ITAR compliant. I've dealt with USDA regulations and FDA regulations in my past. And it really just all depends on whatever the compliance needs are of the customer. Now, typically what we do during an implementation for NetSuite is we actually don't take any data through email whatsoever. We don't want any of this data to come over through email because it's not secure at all. And the benefits that you get out of NetSuite is that they have their own document storage tools that take all the compliance that you need with it. And we ask that you upload them to these tools, right? We internally will use Google Drive, but we don't store any of your data in there. All that data is always going to be stored on the ERP platform within NetSuite. And there are other tools that can come into play, especially like when you have really stringent DoD requirements that you may need an extra level of encryption on there. And there are plenty of other company partners of NetSuite that encrypts extra on what NetSuite already has. So it's all dependent on what the client's requirements are around data security.
Do you find that for clients who are still building and trying to determine the right data security requirements that you're able to counsel the client and advise on what the best practices are there and kind of build from there to architect those best practices?
Yep, for sure. And it's a growing need and potentially always going to be a growing pain, especially if you work in these industries that have some kind of compliance regulation that you need to keep up in. Like in the aviation industry, there's a whole bunch in there that you have to be aware of and that you have to be compliant in. And so at Myers-Holum, we're not only functional consultants, right? We're also business consultants too, because a good majority of our company that are in the consultants have worked in these industries, right? I myself have worked in the supply chain, high flow manufacturing industry with overseas operations and big quality operations overseas too. And some of these other ones have worked in the aviation industry and in the DoD industry, in the aviation industry. And you're going to be, the big thing there is that we're going to take your business requirements and we are going to make sure that we coach and we help you get to the right state that you're going to need. So we want to be that first stop for you to say, I'm about to sign this new customer that has these specific compliance requirements. How do I solve for this? And we'll take whatever our industry experience is, and we will come up with the solution that you need if a solution doesn't already exist for it that we would recommend.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I was just getting back to someone in the audience who had a follow-up question and sharing your contact information just to make sure that for questions that can be addressed after the webinar, that there's a good path to do that. So thank you so much. This was a really good overview around what to consider for AP automation. And Kathy says, thank you. And it was just good to hear from those of you in the audience who are willing to share your experiences. And certainly it's a journey. I think that's what we're hearing is it's a project to be managed. It's also a journey. So Richard, thank you so much for sharing your experience. Also want to say thank you again to, thank you. And thank you to our sponsor, Oracle NetSuite. We are just thrilled with the partnership and being able to bring content like this to the table. So please just keep a lookout for future programs coming up. For those of you who qualified for CPE credit, you could access your CPE certificate directly from your course dashboard in 1 hour. The handouts will be uploaded to your dashboard, and this evening we will upload the recording once it becomes available. So stay tuned for future webinars coming up. We'll look forward to having you join us. That brings us to the end of our time together today. So wishing you all a great rest of the day and we hope you'll join us again for a webinar very soon. Until then, take care.